Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to begin, Chairman Grassley, by thanking you and Senator Crapo for the help in scheduling Chair Yellen's hearing this morning. And Senator Grassley, I also want to thank you for joining me last week in exposing the pharmaceutical companies' insulin price gouging schemes. America knows that they're getting mugged at the pharmacy counter. Now, this committee can use a fresh investigation that helps lay out a plan to finally end one of the all-time big anti-consumer ripoffs, which is what's going on with insulin. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for that. Now, to turn to Chair Yellen, this is the second time in 12 years that a Republican president leaves office with the economy in ruins. Today, there's also a surging pandemic and armed troops guarding our capital from far-right insurrectionist attack. The Biden administration isn't going to begin with inaugural balls. It's going to begin with all-out triage. My top economic priority is avoiding the mistake Congress made in the last recession, which was taking a foot off the gas pedal before recovery took hold. Congress didn't do enough in 2009 to help the unemployed and struggling homeowners. And if stepping off the gas wasn't bad enough, 2 years later, House Republicans passed policies that yanked out the spark plugs and let the air out of the tires as well. In Oregon, it took 7.5 years for unemployment to return to its pre-recession level. That cannot happen again, or else millions and millions of people will go through years of needless hardship. Some will never recover the lives that they had prior to the pandemic. Unemployment is again rising. Federal Reserve data shows that workers of modest incomes are facing Great Depression-level joblessness. 1 out of 5 are out of work. And Donald Trump repeatedly pressed a false and manipulative choice between public health and economic recovery. And now America has neither. The good news is Chair Yellen knows that going small on economic relief would be a big mistake. Chair Yellen is exactly the right person to lead the Treasury Department. Nobody could be better qualified for this job. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent at this point to put into the record a letter signed by 8 former living Treasury secretaries urging swift confirmation of Janet Yellen.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just say to my colleagues, all of those Treasury secretaries don't just come together by osmosis. They believe deeply in the challenge ahead of us in this country, and they all think Janet Yellen is up to the job. And nobody deserves more credit than Chair Yellen for the longest economic expansion that we have seen in our history, which lasted until the pandemic hit. At the Federal Reserve, Chair Yellen changed decades of conventional economic wisdom that put too much focus on inflation and deficits. She was correct that policymakers should focus more on wages, employment, and inequality, and that the economy safely could run a little hotter. Now, she took some heat at the time from Republicans, but later they tried to attribute Janet Yellen's success to the outgoing administration. But the numbers show the successes of Chair Yellen's approach. Unemployment went down, wages went up, and a lot of working Americans were better off than they were before. Who better to lead the Treasury Department and help kick off the next economic expansion than the person who did so much to bring about the last one? Right out of the gate, the Biden administration and Congress need to send major relief to America's working families. That means increasing relief checks to $2,000, and it means extending enhanced unemployment benefits to all of those who've lost their job through no fault of their own. At Mitch McConnell's insistence, the December economic package reduced unemployment benefits from the CARES Act and extended them only until the middle of March. There are groceries in my refrigerator that are going to last longer than Mitch McConnell's unemployment agenda. Now, this has been a common story of late in Washington. Key economic lifelines expire, they get extended, they expire, they get extended. Congress cannot go on with this snooze button legislating. Our workers and our economy need a government that's predictable and reliable. That means the Congress needs to tether the extension of unemployment benefits to economic conditions on the ground with automatic triggers. Those benefits should not be subject to the whim of one elected official. The tattered patchwork of state unemployment insurance systems also needs fixing. My home state of Oregon saw this when the COVID crash hit. In other cases, it was because Republican lawmakers have intentionally hobbled unemployment insurance programs. Workers suffer because of it, particularly Black and Hispanic workers. Congress needs to reform the program, which I think should include bringing all workers into the system, increasing base benefits, and ensuring that it can hold up in a crisis. Also, part of our work has to involve fixing America's broken down, dysfunctional tax code. And to me, it has to start with the proposition that billionaires, corporations, millionaires have to pay their fair share. I'm developing a proposal to reform the taxation of capital gains for the top 0.3% of taxpayers. My plan would tax wealth like work, and it would minimize the ability of those who are particularly well off and have all the accountants and all the lawyers to just defer and defer and defer paying their taxes. If you're a nurse, and I was just home for the last close to 10 days in virtual town halls and talking to folks in a socially distant way. And one of the things I discussed is, if you're a nurse in Oregon taking care of COVID patients, you have to pay taxes with every paycheck. You don't get to defer your taxes if you're a nurse treating COVID patients. But if you're a billionaire, you can defer and defer and defer paying taxes. And in many instances, figure out a way to pay nothing at all. My plan would put a stop to that unfairness, and the revenue would help preserve the Social Security guarantee for decades to come, with additional funds for other priorities. Now, the outgoing administration had a different approach. They were big on corporate tax giveaways, and they actually increased incentives to ship jobs overseas instead of eliminating them. I want those mistakes fixed. Before I wrap up, I want to turn to an existential threat for particularly our kids and our grandkids, and that is climate change. The Treasury Department's going to have a key role to play on these climate issues. Much of America's energy policy is tax policy. Having worked with my friend from Washington State, Senator Cantwell, we know there are now 44 energy tax breaks on the books. And some of them look like they just came from yesteryear. I've got a bill to replace these 44 breaks with 3 that go right to the heart of a new set of priorities: reducing carbon emissions, promoting innovation. The 3 are clean electricity, clean transportation, and energy conservation. I'm also developing a proposal that would make polluters pay for the costs of climate change, with much of the revenue returned directly to the American people through annual cash payments. The Treasury Department plays a big role, as Chairman Grassley noted, in trade. Over the last 4 years, the American people got a lot of tough talk about trade, but there was a big gap between the tough talk and delivering on the big promises. This administration drove away our economic allies. It actually isolated us in the crucial fight against trade cheats in China and elsewhere. Members of this committee are also concerned about currency manipulation and other tactics that rip off high-skill, high-wage jobs at a time when wage growth has got to be right at the top of our economic agenda. I'm looking forward to working with a Secretary Yellen on all these issues and more, and I certainly hope, and Chairman Grassley and I have been talking about it, that with her stellar, extraordinary qualifications, we can get her nomination approved as quickly as possible. And it seems to me, with the economic crunch we're facing, it ought to be approved on day one. Now, I'll close by saying everybody's got a constitutional right to be foolish, but nobody can question Chair Yellen's qualifications. This country has never had a woman as Treasury Secretary. What a shame. Anybody who doubts Chair Yellen's commitment to policies that give everybody a chance to get ahead just hasn't been paying attention. So, colleagues, I look forward to working with all the members, Democrats and Republicans, throughout this session. And I think it's very appropriate that we begin with somebody, with the consideration of a person who's so extraordinarily qualified and who I very much appreciate being willing to return to public service. President-elect Biden could not have made a better choice, colleagues, than Janet Yellen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.